Hello. So, we will continue our discussion on computer networks and internet protocols. So, we are discussing primarily on application layer protocols and which today we will be primarily focusing on HTTP, HTML and Telnet, though HTML is not a protocol, it is a language, but it comes hands in hand with HTTP. So, I thought that it will be good to talk about little brief about HTML. Most of you may be already familiar with HTML, but for the sake of completeness, we will have a quick discussion on HTML protocol, right. So, what we have seen in previous lectures, so it is primarily a client server model, where the server is active on some system on a particular port of the system, right. Like a server program is active on a particular port and the client from other system or from the same system requests the server for that service, right. So, primarily in any client, this type of client server paradigm, we require these 5 element or 5 tuple to be there. One is that server IP server port, client IP client port and this protocol number or protocol ID, right. So, this 5 will be there, any of them is different will give a unique type of connectivity. That is why even if you open up number of pages by the same browser from the same server, it is not it never happens that one page you request a page from one, like say one particular link you click in one browser and it comes up in the other browser, right. So, it is this 5 tuple decides that how the whole uniqueness of the connectivity. One thing to be remembered that this can be anywhere in the things, the whole overall networking paradigm takes care of the thing, right. So, some of the communication is connection oriented, so or some sort of a TCP type of protocols are there, and some of the things are connection less or UDP type of protocols are there. The beauty of this layer or the layering technique is that every layer basically concerned with the functionality of its peer at that layer only, right. So, rest of the things are taken care by the underlining layers what to be there, like if I have a layer n which do not support reliable service, but the previous, so I need to have a other mechanism to take care at the upper layer etcetera to have a reliability etcetera. So, anyway that is a layer to layer phenomena, the PR stock at the layer at the that phenomena only, right. So, if we look at our HTTP type of protocol, then what we see, it is a hypertext transfer protocol. So, primarily allows web document to be communicated over the network, and in doing so what we get realized in a sense it is the basic foundation for the realization of this www or www World Wide Web. So, the whole World Wide Web is one of the predominant things which makes it happening is this HTTP protocol. So, HTTP protocol that supports communication between the web browser and the web server. So, here we say HTTP server and the HTTP browser, right, or in other sense a HTTP browser are clients, right, like our Internet Explorer or Mozilla or Chrome or anything, any browser which are primarily HTTP client, and the HTTP server as the other end of the thing. It can be in the same machine, can be in the same network, can be in a different network, in a different machine and anything, right. The only thing is that I should have some sort of a connectivity between the thing. So, a web browser is typically known as is referred as a HTTP server, or rather HTTP server is referred to as web browser, whereas HTTP client is synonymous, more or less synonymous with the web server is the HTTP server and the web browser is the HTTP client. And we predominantly we are having two version, one is HTTP 1.0, that is RFC 9045 specified is. So, if those who are interested can open up the RFC and say that how this definition is there, and RFC 2616 which is HTTP 1.1, right. Rather HTTP version 1.1 specifies a persistent connectivity by default, otherwise the connectivity are not persistent. So, HTTP is a application level protocol with the lightness and speed necessary for distributed hypermedia information system. Now, one thing we need to keep in mind that when we are exchanging information or data across the network, it need to be lightweight. So that I can have first of all the characteristics is distributed. Heterogeneous systems are storing the data, and there is a constraint on the bandwidth or at the backbone bandwidth. So, in order to address that, what it requires is a lightness, and for that speed necessary for distributed and hypertext information. Why this hypermedia type of information? See, I should have in some generic way of representation, so that it can interoperate easily, right. I do not have any control, like you do not have any control that how HTML, how the data is stored in IIT Kharagpur website or web server, right. Similarly, in your organizational web server, we do not have any control, or the other people are. So, but when I am keeping in something web server at IIT KGP, the basic idea is to distribute the data, right. It is not for only for my consumption, but the rest of the world what I want to show need to see it. Now, in order to achieve this, there should be a some sort of formatting where which is easily parsable, which you can interpret or parse in a much easier way. So, this HTTP gives a basis for that. It is a protocol which supports that. So, and it is transport independence. Transport independence means underlying transport layer independence. Though it is generally take place over TCP connection, HTTP comes by default with the TCP connection. However, protocol itself do not depend on the specific transport layer. Like the protocol itself is not specify that this transport layer is mandatory, etc., but the predominant underlying protocol, or by default what we consider that there is a connection oriented or TCP type of connection is there at the transport layer, right. So, that HTTP tries to ensure. HTTP takes care, is basically works over this any transport layer, but primarily TCP is the predominant protocol. So, it has a simple structure. It says a client sends a request, server returns a reply, right. So, it is a very vanilla type of structure, request response thing. HTTP can support multiple request reply exchanges over a single TCP connection, right. Like if I have a underlying one transport layer connection, HTTP can support multiple request response exchanges over a particular connection. The well known port for HTTP is port 80, right. So, the by default if you do not specify anything, the port is port 80, right, but other ports can be used. So, if we again come back to the things like when we say when we type key into the browser, say www.iitkgp.ac.in or say www.nptel or say nptel.iitm.ac.in or something, nptel.iitkgp.ac.in. So, what this browser or the client does, it at the underlining it has to, because this is a name. So, name cannot be communicated. So, the first of all the name is converted to the as a IP address, right, and by default as you do not specify anything, by default it will take port 80 as the port, right. Otherwise, you need to specify the port, like you have to specify xyz.com colon say port 7126, that means you are specifying that you hit to that port. By default as the HTTP server listens to port 80, so it is the default port, other ports can also be very well used. So, overall architecture as it is the basis for WWW. So, it is a distributed, if you look at the World Wide Web, it is a distributed client server service in which a HTTP client browser can access a service by from a HTTP server, right. So, it is a HTTP client server service. So, there are client. So, who are the parties? Client, server, there is a URL or universe resource locator, and there are cookies, right. Cookies, as you know, that is primarily to remember your previous data, or it helps in maintaining your session. But primarily what we say, we require a URL to connectivity, a client or a browser for request and server for responding. So, if you look at the thing, so that the client is sending request for a particular site, getting a web page back, it may have a link for other web page to connectivity, it gets this back. So, this way it goes on referring to the web pages, right. So, this is typically, and it can be any type of number of connectivity, etc. So, if we look at little bit on the browser point of view, so what at the browser end, what it is having? It is having a controller, which is which can have different type of protocol to support, right, like HTTP, FTP, Telnet, SMTP and type of things. And if it is the controller hits that, if it is a normal HTML page or static page type of things, it goes and get the thing. There can be JavaScript, where which is a dynamicity brings into the things, or there are other Java programs. So, Java is one of the things. So, there what we say that you can have program level or some sort of a API level things, like it is one is that you request for the page, gets the page, one you run the thing at the server side, you run something, and the client side the reflection is there, like say I send a roll number, get the rank, I send a particular bank account number, get some status report of the things. So, there can be one way of looking at that. There can be other things like some sort of a things which can be need to be checked at the client end, like I enter a roll number. Typically, say roll number is a only numeric character. Numeric, you need to enter the numeric, but instead if you enter a character set or say put sub character, it says that it is a invalid thing. So, that is that I can do at the client end, no need of bringing this whole thing to the server, check it and flash it back. So, that I can have a client side scripting or server side scripting, those things are supported by this HTTP protocol. And URL, as we all know, it is a protocol, like if it is HTTP colon name or IP again colon port slash the path where you want to access. Like if that is not by default, if it is a port 80, then the port is not required, right. So, it can be HTTP, it can be FTP, right, anything any protocol which supports this type of thing. So, it is a unified resource locator or uniform resource locator, and we this is the overall structure. This is already known to us. If your HTTP protocol HTTP server is running in some other port, you give the port number. So, typically web document can be grouped into three broad categories, right. One is static, you request and get the page. One is dynamic, you request, get something executed and get the page. One is active, which is on your side of the browser, while you say some checking, authentication, some processing at the browser end. Like static pages, you request and get the static page there. In case of like one common, in case of a dynamic, we have a concept of common gateway interface or CGI. So, through that I can have a request, and based on that the HTML page, dynamic HTML page is returned, right. In the static page, say I request for a for something and I get the list of, I get a static page of the list of students roll number versus the name, a list. In case of a dynamic page, I send a request with a student roll number say and get a data related to the student roll number back to me as a HTML document, right. If the student roll number changes, this document also changes, right. So, that is a dynamicity is there. In other sense, there should be some program running at the other end, like based on your request, it execute and generate a dynamically a page and returns back. So, that is the dynamicity on the things. One of the very popular technique is using the common gateway interface or CGI programming, some of you might have done. So, dynamic document also sometimes what we refer as a server side scripting, right. So, runs a script inside the HTML document which execute the thing and generate the dynamic HTML thing. So, that is at the server end. So, server side script. Similarly, there can be active document which are at the client side, or what we say it is a client side script, right. So, I can run a Java applet at the client side and it gets executed. So, I request something, it returns a applet and the applet goes on being executed at the client side, right. So, this sort of things it is also a active document, not a static one. Based on your request the applet comes is returned back and it goes on executing. So, this is also a active page or dynamicity there, or I can have instead a JavaScript which will be executed here, right. It can be used for some basic level authentication, say whether it is a valid character set or some sort of those type of things which can be done at the scripting at the client end without transferring the things. So, we have these server side scripts which are client side script, and when we do that we say the active documents, right. So, whenever we are running on something on the server client side, it is active document, it is referred as active document. When we are running something at the server side and the dynamic HTML comes back, it is a dynamic, and if it is nothing is there, you request for a page, get the output and get the page displayed on the screen and it is a static page, then we have a static document. So, coming back to the thing, so what we have, HTTP is a request response thing. So, again let me little bit repeat it. So, server is running a HTTP server. Typically we refer it as HTTPD or HTTP daemon, right. It is running at the server end. Client is the sending a HTTP client request, right. In our cases is mostly the browser. So, browser construct the data and send it to the thing, and the server responds back to the thing. So, the transaction is pretty simple, every request get a response to the things. Typically this is typically HTTP this request response are stateless, that it will not remember that what happened at the earlier state, right. In order to do that, you need to do some other things to handle that. Anyway, though what at the present it send a request, get a return back. So, HTTP request response messages. So, what we have, this is again very standard format. We have a request line, a set of headers, a blank line and the body of the things. It may be possible that the body may not be always present in the message. In case of a response message, again it has a status line, that based on the request what is the status line, a set of header lines, blank line and the body of the message, right. Again there may be possibility that there may not be any message on the thing. So, this is the basic block of the things, but what are the different type of request responses or what are the different type of commands, status reports, etc., that we will see slowly. So, if we say the request and status line, so what we have, the request type, the URL where the request is there and the HTTP version which is being used. Similarly, for the status thing, we have that HTTP version, status code and the status phrase of the thing. So, particular status code like say 200 is okay or successful type of status code, and then like that. So, it comes with the things like if we have 404 or 4 status are error, those are primarily error status. So, there are different HTTP methods. One is say get method which requests a document from the server. There is a head method requests information about a document, but not the document itself, right. Post method sends some information from the client to the server. Put sends a document from the server to the client. Trace echoes incoming request. Connect is reserved method, and option that inquires about the available option. So, there are different set of methods, right, we are discussing some. So, primarily more popular are get, head, post, put, these are the most popular, widely used, not popular, I should say everywhere used, others are also there options, etc. Similarly, if you look at the status code, 100 is a code of continue type of things. The initial part of the request has been received, the client may continue with the request, this is the status code. 101 is the switching, the server is complying with the client request to switch protocols defined in the upgrade header. There are status code of 2XX series, that 200, that is OK, result is successful. 201 created, a new URL is created. 202 accepted, the request is accepted, but is not immediately acted on, and 204 no content, that means there is no content in the body, right. So, there is that says that there is no content in the body. And there are more status report, that is 3XS series, primarily moved permanently or moved temporarily or not modified, this type of things. 4XS series are primarily, so 3XS series are redirection. So, here what we have seen, 1XS is informational, it gives information, it is more for informational purpose. 2XS is mostly reporting success. 3XS is redirection. So, if it is any redirection of the page or change or somewhere. 4XS is the client error or the whatever the client size error, the bad request, unauthorized request, forbidden, not found, methods not allowed, not acceptable, and these are set of requests which are at the client error. Whereas, server errors are as a 5XX series, that internal server error, not implemented, service unavailable. So, these are all server side error. So, there are client side error, server side error. So, everything has a status code, and if you minutely check that whenever it gives you error etc., you mostly see this sort of error. By that you can decipher that one is 404 is the most what we say most seen error type of things, that the document not found type sort of error. So, if we look at the HTTP header name colon a space and the header value. So, header are different type of header, like one is cache control, specify information about the caching. Connection shows whether the connection should be closed or not, date, current date, MIME, upgrade, and so on and so forth. And there are these are mostly request type of headers, like these are set of request type of request headers. So, what we have seen request header and the response or the status header. So, these are the set of request header, like accept, cat set, accept encoding, and so on and so forth. So, these are more in detail. If you want to look at, those who are interested need to be looked into any standard book, or RFC may be a good place to look at. So, there are response error, like accept range, age shows the age of the document, public shows the supported list of methods, retry after specify the date after which the server is available, server shows the server name and version number, and like that. So, these are different response headers. So, HTTP entity headers, so allow allow that list of valid methods, content encoding. So, these are more related to the entity, like. So, that is content length, content range, content type, when it expires, last modified date, location, specifies the location of the created or modified document. So, these are the different entity headers. So, what we see, it is a rich collection or rich set of commands or control is there. So, that is why it is able to handle a variety of say media or the variety of data or the variety of information across the www. And we need to also keep in mind that there are data stored in a heterogeneous fashion in across the network, and every data has their own payload or data load which takes time to the things. HTTP has its own say timing issues, like how long, suppose I request a particular page, how long I should wait the page will come, right. So, there is a there is a timeout thing also is there. So, keeping in mind, so in the overall management of this type of distributed and loosely coupled systems, you need to have lot of flags and what we say so called headers and other informations to handle that. The example here a example again from that book, that example retrieves a document. We get a get method to retrieve an image with a path /user/bin image 1. The request line shows the method get and things. So, if we come to the example, so this is the request. So, get method HTTP version 1 accept, it is looking for a image and accept this image type of things. If you look at the header thing, so accept, so the medium format the client can accept, right. So, that it shows that what are the format it can accept, like it is a image of GIF type or image of JPEG type, and at the other end it gives a status of 200, that if you remember that the success header, then the date, server is what sort of server, what sort of MIME version is there, how much content length is there, and the body of the document, right. So, this is the way request comes. So, if we expand the HTTP, this will be looking like that. Similarly, in other example, so this is a request and this example it is a post, right, where in this example the client want to send a data to the server, use post method, the request line shows the post URL and HTTP version 1. There are 4 lines of the header, the request body contains the information and so on. So, what we see, so it is a posting something against the image type some data and the code either GIF or JPEG, and it is content is some content length is there. On the other side, the server replies with a 200 OK, and it is the type of things it is able to handle, it is showing, right. So, it is the response message contains the status line and the 4 lines of the header, the created document which is a CGI document, that is if you remember common gateway interface document, and is included as the in the body of the thing, right. So, it comes as a request message as encoded as a CGI document for the body of the message. Now, just to look at that connecting HTTP server using I can have a Telnet also, right. Telnet we will see subsequently, it is primarily used to connect to some other remote login type of situation, but I can have Telnet, the name of the things is that I can have Telnet www.mmhe.com.at, right. So, it will hit and try to retrieve, provided that if it is not blocked that the particular Telnet function etc., but that will retrieve back. So, what we mean to say that underlining I can use some other protocol at that particular port, and if the HTTP server or the server which is listening at the port is responding to that request, it will respond, right. In this case, it gets a after doing that I give a get message of a something. This is actually from that data communication of the Farhausen book. So, that is the example shown there, and the server end also it responded with 200 OK and so forth, right. So, what we see here that it is the server which is listening at port 80 in this case, it could have been other port also, accept that message and respond it back to the thing, and it is a I am sending a HTTP sort of request through a other protocol, that is the Telnet protocol, right. So, this is feasible, right. So, so what we see HTTP is a hypertext transfer protocol, where a server side that the server is listening to a particular port, and the client or client of the clients knows that where is the IP and the port of the things. Whenever it wants to connect, it connect to the thing, connect to that particular port and get the result. And based on the things, there can be different type of status, right. It can be, mostly it is successful, otherwise if the error is there, so there should be error flagging and so forth, and get displayed in the things. Another part, if you see, it is independent, it can handle different type of media. It can handle text, it can handle your different version of the thing, like it can handle image, it can handle video, it can handle voice. So, it is a some sort of a, it can handle any hypermedia type of things. But as the communication or the formatting is in a particular generic format, so it is able to that at the client or the browser able to accept it. So, that is the beauty of this HTTP, which can be able to access across the over the internet. So, with this, let us conclude here, and we will be discussing a little bit on HTML and other Telnet in the subsequent lecture. Thank you.